My name is Joanna, and I'm about to tell you how a single cup of coffee almost ended my life in the most terrifying way possible. I stood in our kitchen in downtown Chicago, holding David's coffee cup close to my nose. The smell hit me like a punch to the gut. Bitter almonds, sharp, chemical, wrong. My hands started shaking as memories flooded back to my college chemistry class in Boston. Professor Williams had warned us about this exact smell. "If you ever smell bitter almonds where they shouldn't be," he'd said, "run." But I couldn't run. Not yet. I watched my mother-in-law Margaret sitting at our marble breakfast table, reading the Chicago Tribune like she owned the world. Her perfectly styled gray hair caught the morning sunlight streaming through our penthouse windows. She looked up at me with those cold blue eyes that had never shown me an ounce of warmth in 3 years of marriage. "Joanna, dear," she said in that fake sweet voice. "You look pale. Perhaps you should drink your coffee. David made it specially for you." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. David was upstairs in our master bathroom, and I could hear the shower running. He'd brought me this coffee just 5 minutes ago, kissed my forehead, and said, "Drink up, honey. You'll need your energy today." What did he mean by that? The past few weeks had been strange. David, my investment banker husband who used to tell me everything, had become secretive. Late-night phone calls where he'd whisper and hang up when I walked into the room. His laptop always closed when I came near. And those business trips to New York that seemed to happen every weekend now. Last Tuesday, I'd found something that made my blood freeze. I was looking for our tax documents in David's home office when I accidentally clicked on his browser history. The searches made me sick. Untraceable poisons. How to make death look natural. Life insurance payout times. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he was writing a crime novel. Maybe it was research for work. But deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. Now, holding this coffee that smelled like death, everything clicked into place. Margaret was still watching me, waiting for me to drink. Her thin lips curved into what might have been a smile, but her eyes stayed cold as winter in Lake Michigan. "I'll drink it in just a moment," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "I want to get you some fresh coffee first. Yours must be getting cold." I walked to the counter, my legs feeling like jelly. "Think, Joanna, think." I grabbed the coffee pot with one hand while keeping David's cup in the other. When Margaret looked down at her newspaper, I made my move. In one quick motion, I switched our cups. Margaret's cup now sat in front of me, and David's poisoned coffee was in front of her. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sat back down. Margaret picked up what she thought was her cup and took a long sip. Then another. "Much better," she said. "David always did make excellent coffee. It's one of the few things he learned properly." I pretended to drink from Margaret's cup, barely letting the liquid touch my lips. The coffee was normal. Just coffee. No bitter almond smell. No chemical taste. 15 minutes passed. Margaret kept drinking and reading her paper. I kept pretending to drink while watching her carefully. Then I saw it. A slight tremor in her hand as she turned the page. She blinked several times like she was having trouble focusing. 25 minutes. Margaret's breathing became shallow. She put down her coffee cup with shaking fingers. "I feel," she started to say, then stopped. Her face had gone pale, almost gray. 30 minutes exactly. Margaret's eyes went wide with panic. She tried to stand but stumbled, gripping the table for support. "Joanna," she gasped, "something's wrong. I can't breathe properly." That's when she collapsed. What do you think happened next? Drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever had a gut feeling that saved your life. The sound of Margaret's body hitting our marble floor echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Her coffee cup shattered beside her, sending dark liquid spreading across the white tiles like spilled blood. "Margaret!" I screamed, rushing to her side. But inside, my mind was racing with cold calculation. I had to act shocked. I had to seem innocent. Margaret's eyes were wide with terror, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Her perfectly manicured fingers clawed at her throat as she struggled to breathe. Foam started forming at the corners of her mouth. "David," I yelled toward the stairs. "David, come quick. Something's wrong with your mother." I heard the shower turn off upstairs, then David's feet pounding down the hardwood steps. He appeared in the kitchen doorway wearing only a towel, water still dripping from his dark hair. "What happened?" he asked, but something in his voice sounded wrong. Not surprised enough. Like he was reading lines from a script. "She just collapsed," I said, kneeling beside Margaret. "She said she couldn't breathe, and then she fell." David pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "Yes, we need an ambulance at the Millennium Tower, penthouse level. My mother collapsed and she's having trouble breathing." While he talked to the operator, I watched Margaret's face turn blue. Her breathing became more and more shallow. The bitter almond smell still lingered in the air from the spilled coffee. "They'll be here in 5 minutes," David said, hanging up. He knelt beside his mother, but I noticed he didn't touch her. He didn't try to help her breathe or check her pulse like any normal son would do. "I'm going to get dressed before the paramedics arrive," he said, standing up. "Stay with her." The moment David disappeared upstairs, I knew I had maybe 3 minutes to find proof of what he'd done. I ran to his home office down the hall, my bare feet silent on the cold floor. David's desk was usually locked, but in his panic, he'd left it open. I pulled out the drawers one by one, searching frantically. In the bottom drawer, hidden under some old bank statements, I found it. A small glass bottle with a white label. Potassium cyanide, danger, poison. My hands shook as I read the warning labels. This was what had been in my coffee. This was what David had planned to kill me with. But that wasn't all. Underneath the bottle was a manila folder marked, "Life Insurance, Joanna Chen." I opened it with trembling fingers. $2 million. David had taken out a life insurance policy on me just 6 months ago, and I'd never known about it. My stomach dropped even further when I saw the next document. Love letters, dozens of them, written in David's handwriting to someone named Lisa. "My darling Lisa," one began, "soon we'll be free to be together. Joanna won't be a problem much longer. Mother has the perfect plan." Mother has the perfect plan. Margaret knew. Margaret was part of this. I heard sirens getting closer and David's footsteps upstairs. I quickly took photos of everything with my phone, then put the documents back exactly where I'd found them. When I got back to the kitchen, Margaret was barely breathing. Her lips were completely blue now, and her eyes had rolled back in her head. The paramedics burst through our front door just as David came downstairs, now dressed in jeans and a sweater. He looked like the perfect concerned son. "She was fine this morning," David told the paramedics as they worked on Margaret. "She was drinking coffee and reading the paper, then she just collapsed." One of the paramedics looked up at me. "Did she eat or drink anything unusual this morning?" "Just coffee," I said carefully. "The same coffee we all had." They loaded Margaret onto a stretcher and rushed her toward the elevator. David grabbed his keys and wallet. "I'm going to the hospital," he said to me. "You should stay here and rest. You look shaken up." After they left, I stood alone in our kitchen, staring at the broken coffee cup and the puddle of poisoned coffee on the floor. The coffee that was meant for me. The coffee that should have killed me instead of Margaret. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, 3rd floor waiting room, come alone. You're in more danger than you know. A friend." Who do you think sent that mysterious text? Comment below with your theories. I drove through the busy streets of Chicago with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The mysterious text kept flashing in my mind as I pulled into the Northwestern Memorial Hospital parking garage. Who knew I was in danger? And how did they get my number? The 3rd floor waiting room smelled like disinfectant and fear. Families sat in plastic chairs, some crying, others staring at nothing. I looked around nervously until I saw a woman in her 40s with kind brown eyes and graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was holding a cup of tea and watching me carefully. "Joanna?" she asked softly, standing up. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. I sent you the text." I recognized the name immediately. "You're Margaret's bridge partner. You come to the house sometimes for their card games." "Yes, but I'm also a retired chemistry professor from Northwestern University," she said, gesturing for me to sit beside her. "And I've been Margaret's friend for 20 years, long enough to know some very dark secrets about the Chen family." My heart started racing again. What kind of secrets? Dr. Vasquez looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "David's father didn't die of a heart attack 15 years ago, like everyone believes. He was murdered, poisoned with the same substance that nearly killed Margaret today." The room seemed to spin around me. "What are you talking about?" "Potassium cyanide," she whispered. "I know, because I helped Margaret get it back then. She told me she needed it for research. I was young and stupid and trusted her completely. I had no idea what she was really planning." I felt sick to my stomach. "Margaret killed her own husband?" "Richard Chen was planning to divorce Margaret and leave everything to charity. He'd discovered she was having an affair with his business partner. Margaret couldn't let that happen. She'd grown up poor just like you, and she wasn't about to lose her wealthy lifestyle." Dr. Vasquez pulled out an old photograph from her purse. It showed a younger Margaret with a handsome man and a little boy who looked exactly like David. "David was only 16 when it happened," she continued. "He came home from school and found his father collapsed in the kitchen. Margaret told him it was a heart attack, but David saw the coffee cup. He smelled the bitter almonds. He knew something was wrong, but he was too scared and confused to say anything." "So David knows his mother is a killer?" "Worse than that. Margaret spent the next 15 years training him to be just like her. She taught him that killing was just another way to solve problems. She convinced him that weak people deserved to die, and strong people deserved to take what they wanted. I thought about all those late nights when David would have long phone conversations with his mother, all those times she'd visit and they'd disappear into his office for hours. I'd always thought they were just close. Now I realized she was teaching him how to be a monster. "But why are you telling me this now?" I asked. Dr. Vasquez's eyes filled with tears. "Because Margaret called me 3 weeks ago. She was excited, almost giddy. She said David had finally found the perfect target for his first solo kill, a weak, poor girl who married him for money and didn't deserve to live." The words hit me like a physical blow. She was talking about me. "Margaret has been planning your death for months. She helped David research poisons, helped him take out that life insurance policy, even helped him find Lisa, his secretary, to give him a motive for wanting you gone." "You knew about Lisa too?" "Margaret bragged about it. She said it was the perfect setup. David kills his wife, collects the insurance money, and marries his pregnant girlfriend. Everyone would think it was a crime of passion, and he'd get a light sentence." "Lisa is pregnant?" The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. 6 months along, Margaret has been planning to help raise the baby while David serves his time. She saw it as her chance to mold another generation of killers. Dr. Vasquez grabbed my hands. "Joanna, you switching those coffee cups this morning saved your life, but it also exposed their plan. David knows you're suspicious now. He's going to try to kill you tonight, and this time he won't use poison. This time it will look like an accident. What do you think David's backup plan is? Share your thoughts in the comments below." I drove back to our penthouse in downtown Chicago with Dr. Vasquez's warning echoing in my head. David was going to try to kill me tonight. I had maybe a few hours to figure out his plan before he came home from the hospital. The elevator ride to our floor felt like it took forever. My hands shook as I unlocked our front door, half expecting David to be waiting inside. But the apartment was empty and quiet. Too quiet. I walked into our kitchen where Margaret had collapsed just hours earlier. Someone had cleaned up the broken coffee cup and mopped the floor. All evidence of the poisoning was gone. But who had cleaned it? David was at the hospital, and our housekeeper didn't come until Fridays. That's when I noticed something that made my blood freeze. There was a fresh cup of coffee sitting on the counter, still steaming hot. Beside it was a note in David's handwriting. "Welcome home, honey. Made you some coffee to help you relax after this terrible day. Drink up. Love, David." He was here. Somewhere in the apartment. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the drawer and called out, "David, are you home?" No answer. I crept through our living room toward the hallway, the knife trembling in my grip. Our apartment suddenly felt huge and full of hiding places. Behind every door could be my husband, waiting to finish what he'd started. "David, I know you're here," I called again. "Your car is in the garage." Still nothing. I checked our bedroom, the guest rooms, even the closets. Empty. But I could feel eyes watching me. I could sense his presence like a predator stalking its prey. Finally, I heard the front door open and close. Footsteps in the hallway. "Joanna?" David's voice called out, sounding perfectly normal. "I'm home. How are you feeling?" I quickly hid the knife behind my back and walked out to meet him. David stood in our entryway, still wearing the same clothes from the hospital. His face looked tired and sad, like a grieving son. "How's your mother?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's stable, but the doctors don't know what caused her collapse. They're running more tests." His eyes moved to the coffee cup on the counter. "I made you some coffee before I left. You should drink it while it's still warm." "That's so sweet of you," I said, walking toward the kitchen. "But I'm not really thirsty right now." David's jaw tightened slightly. "You should drink it, Joanna. You've had a shock today. The caffeine will help." I picked up the cup and pretended to take a sip, but kept my lips closed. The coffee smelled normal this time, but I wasn't taking any chances. "Actually, I think I'll save it for later," I said, setting it back down. "I want to take a shower first." "No." David's voice was sharp now, dropping the caring husband act. "Drink the coffee now." We stared at each other across our kitchen island. The mask was finally slipping from his face, and I could see the cold killer underneath. "Why, David?" I asked quietly. "Why do you want me to drink it so badly?" He smiled, but it wasn't the warm smile I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. This smile was empty and cruel, just like his mother's. "Because, my dear wife, you've caused me a lot of trouble today. Switching those coffee cups was very clever, but it also showed me that you know too much." My heart pounded as I slowly backed toward the hallway. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. You found the poison in my desk, didn't you? You saw the insurance policy. Maybe you even found my letters to Lisa." He started walking around the island toward me. "You've been snooping, Joanna, and that makes you dangerous." I turned and ran toward our bedroom, but David was faster. He caught my arm and spun me around. "The coffee was plan A," he said, his grip tightening. "But I always have a backup plan. Mother taught me that." He pulled a syringe from his jacket pocket. The needle gleamed under our hallway lights, and the barrel was filled with clear liquid. "This will be much faster," he whispered. "And when they find your body, it will look like you killed yourself out of guilt for poisoning my poor mother." Will Joanna escape David's deadly trap? Drop your predictions in the comments. I twisted away from David's grip and ran toward our front door, but he was right behind me. The syringe in his hand caught the light from our crystal chandelier as he lunged forward. "You can't run from this, Joanna," he said, his voice eerily calm. "I've been planning this for months. Every detail is perfect." I grabbed a heavy glass vase from our hallway table and threw it at him. It shattered against the wall as David ducked, giving me just enough time to reach the door. But when I tried to turn the handle, nothing happened. The door was locked from the inside with a key I didn't have. "Looking for this?" David held up a small silver key, smiling that cold smile again. "I had the locks changed yesterday while you were at work. Only I have the keys now." I was trapped. 30 floors above the busy streets of Chicago, with nowhere to run and a killer blocking my only exit. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, backing against the door. I loved you, David. I thought you loved me too. Love? He laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. I never loved you, Joanna. You were just practice. Mother said I needed to learn how to kill someone close to me before I could handle bigger targets. Bigger targets? My business partner who's been asking too many questions about missing money. Lisa, once she has the baby and becomes inconvenient. Maybe even some of Mother's bridge friends who know too much about Father's death. He took a step closer, raising the syringe. But you're my first real kill. Mother is so proud. That's when I heard it. A key turning in the front door lock. David spun around, confused. That's impossible. I have the only... The door opened and Detective Morrison from the Chicago Police Department walked in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Mr. Chen, Detective Morrison said, his hand resting on his gun. We need to talk to you about your mother's condition. David quickly hid the syringe behind his back, his face instantly changing back to the grieving sun mask. Of course, Detective. I'm happy to help however I can. This has been such a terrible day for our family. I'm sure it has, Detective Morrison said, looking around our apartment. His eyes stopped on the broken glass from the vase I'd thrown. Looks like you've had some excitement here, too. Just an accident, David said smoothly. My wife is very upset about Mother's collapse. She knocked over a vase while she was pacing. I opened my mouth to tell the detective about the syringe, but David gave me a look that promised death if I said anything. Actually, Detective, David continued, I'm worried about Joanna. She's been acting very strange lately. Paranoid. Talking about people trying to hurt her. Detective Morrison looked at me with new interest. Is that right, Mrs. Chen? David is lying, I said quickly. He has a syringe behind his back right now. He was trying to inject me with something. Joanna, please, David said in a patient voice, like he was talking to a crazy person. You're having another episode. There's no syringe. He brought his hands forward, and they were empty. Somehow, he'd made the syringe disappear. Mrs. Chen, Detective Morrison said gently, have you been under a lot of stress lately? She has, David answered before I could speak. Ever since Mother got sick, Joanna has been convinced that someone is trying to poison the family. She even accused me of putting something in her coffee this morning. That's because he did, I shouted. He poisoned Margaret's coffee, but I switched the cups. The detective and officers exchanged glances. I could see they thought I was having a mental breakdown. Mrs. Chen, Detective Morrison said, we found something in your purse when we searched your car in the hospital parking garage. My heart stopped. What? One of the officers held up a small glass bottle, the same bottle I'd found in David's desk, the poison. Potassium cyanide, Detective Morrison said. The same substance that nearly killed your mother-in-law. We also found this. He held up a piece of paper covered in my handwriting. It was a confession, admitting to poisoning Margaret out of jealousy and greed, but I had never written those words in my life. I never wrote that, I said, staring at the confession in Detective Morrison's hands. David must have forged my handwriting. He's been planning this for months. Mrs. Chen, please calm down, Detective Morrison said. We're going to need you to come with us for questioning. David put his arm around my shoulders in a gesture that looked supportive but felt like a trap. Detective, my wife has been under tremendous stress. Maybe she needs medical attention instead of jail. No! I pulled away from David. Don't you see what he's doing? He's making me look crazy so no one will believe me when I tell the truth. That's when I heard the elevator ding in the hallway. Dr. Vasquez stepped out, followed by a woman in a dark suit carrying a briefcase. Detective Morrison, Dr. Vasquez called out. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. I believe you're looking for me. The detective looked confused. Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but this is a crime scene. You need to leave. Actually, I'm exactly who you need to see. Dr. Vasquez walked into our apartment with confidence. I'm the one who called the FBI about the Chen family murders. FBI? David's face went pale. What murders? My father died of a heart attack 15 years ago. No, David, Dr. Vasquez said sadly. Your father was murdered by your mother with potassium cyanide, the same poison you tried to use on Joanna today. The woman in the suit stepped forward and showed her badge. Agent Sarah Kim, FBI. We've been investigating the Chen family for 6 months based on Dr. Vasquez's information. Dr. Vasquez opened her purse and pulled out a small recording device. I've been wearing this wire for weeks, documenting conversations with Margaret about her plans to help David kill his wife. She pressed play, and Margaret's voice filled our apartment. The girl is too suspicious, Elena. David needs to kill her soon, before she figures out what really happened to Richard. I've taught him everything I know about making murder look like suicide. David's mask finally cracked completely. You recorded my mother? You betrayed her? I couldn't let you kill an innocent woman, Dr. Vasquez said. Just like I should have stopped Margaret from killing your father all those years ago. Agent Kim pulled out handcuffs. David Chen, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and insurance fraud. This is insane, David shouted as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Joanna is the one with the poison. She's the one who tried to kill my mother. Actually, Agent Kim said, we found your real hiding place, David, the storage unit you rented under a fake name in Naperville. Enough poison to kill dozens of people, along with detailed plans for murdering your business partner, your secretary Lisa, and several other people. My legs felt weak. Lisa? You were planning to kill Lisa too? She was getting too demanding, David said with a shrug, his caring husband act completely gone now. Threatening to tell you about the baby unless I divorced you immediately. Mother said pregnant women make terrible witnesses anyway. Dr. Vasquez turned to me with tears in her eyes. Joanna, there's something else you need to know. We found your real confession letter in David's storage unit, the one he wrote in your handwriting, planning to leave beside your body. Agent Kim handed me a piece of paper. It was my handwriting, but the words made me sick. I can't live with the guilt anymore. I killed Margaret because I was jealous of David's love for his mother. I killed myself because I can't face prison. Please forgive me. He's been practicing your handwriting for months, Dr. Vasquez explained. We found dozens of practice sheets. He was going to inject you with poison, then leave this note to make it look like suicide. Detective Morrison looked embarrassed. Mrs. Chen, I owe you an apology. The evidence we found in your car was planted. We should have investigated more thoroughly. As they led David toward the elevator, he turned back to look at me one last time. You think you've won, Joanna? Mother taught me well. Even from prison, I'll find a way to finish what I started. Agent Kim stepped between us. Mr. Chen, I'd suggest you worry more about your mother. She's awake now and she's talking. A lot. David's face went white as the elevator doors closed. 6 months later, I stood in the Cook County Courthouse in downtown Chicago, watching David being led away in handcuffs after receiving 3 consecutive life sentences. The judge had called him a cold-blooded killer who showed no remorse for his crimes. David never looked at me during the entire trial, but I could feel his hatred burning across the courtroom. Margaret had died 2 weeks after drinking the poisoned coffee, but not before confessing everything to the FBI. In her final days, she revealed the locations of 3 other bodies, including David's father, who had been buried in a forest preserve outside the city. She also admitted to training David since he was 16, teaching him that killing was just another business skill. Some people are born to be victims, she had told Agent Kim from her hospital bed. Others are born to take what they want. I was teaching David to be a survivor. The trial had been a nightmare, but it was finally over. David would never hurt anyone again. Dr. Vasquez walked up to me as we left the courthouse. She had become my closest friend during these terrible months, helping me heal from the trauma of discovering that my husband had never loved me and had spent our entire marriage planning my death. "How are you feeling?" she asked, linking her arm through mine as we walked down the courthouse steps. "Free," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free. The Chen family fortune had been massive, but I learned that David's father had written a secret will before his death, leaving everything to charities that helped abuse victims. Margaret had hidden the will for 15 years, but the FBI found it during their investigation. I decided to honor Richard Chen's wishes and donated every penny to organizations that helped women escape dangerous relationships. I kept only enough money to start over somewhere new. 3 months ago, I moved to Portland, Oregon, where nobody knew my story. I rented a small apartment near the river and got a job as a counselor at a women's shelter. Every day, I helped women who were trapped in situations like mine, women who needed someone to believe their stories and help them find the strength to escape. Today was special because I was meeting with a new client named Maria. She had called our hotline last night, whispering that she thought her boyfriend was trying to poison her food. Her story sounded so familiar it made my heart ache. "He's been acting strange lately," Maria told me as we sat in my office, "making me special meals and getting angry when I don't finish everything. Yesterday, I found rat poison hidden in his closet." I looked into her frightened brown eyes and saw myself 6 months ago, scared, confused, but smart enough to trust her instincts. "Maria," I said gently, "I want you to know that I believe you, and I want to tell you something that might save your life." I spent the next hour teaching her everything Dr. Vasquez had taught me: how to document evidence safely, how to contact the police without her boyfriend knowing, how to trust the voice inside her head that was screaming danger. "You said you found rat poison," I told her. "That's not a coincidence, that's a plan. And you recognizing it means you're already smarter and stronger than he thinks you are." By the end of our session, Maria had a safety plan and the phone number for a safe house. She also had something else that was even more important: the knowledge that she wasn't crazy and she wasn't alone. As she left my office, Maria turned back to me. "How did you know so much about this? About what it feels like to live with someone who wants to hurt you?" I smiled, thinking about how far I'd come from that terrified woman in the Chicago penthouse. "Because I survived it too. And if I can survive it, so can you." That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking the Willamette River, drinking tea and watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Vasquez. "Saw the news about David's sentencing. How are you doing?" I typed back, "I'm doing more than surviving. I'm living. And I'm helping other women live too." For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. David had tried to destroy me, but instead, he had made me stronger. Every woman I helped escape was proof that his evil had been turned into something good. The bitter taste of betrayal was finally gone, replaced by the sweet knowledge that I had found my purpose.